Welcome to Responsible Business Conversations, a platform where we have conversations with courageous leaders who desire to shape a world where responsible business and government become a new reality. This platform is brought to you by Integrated Thinking Solutions. Today on RBC, we are having a conversation with Mr. Cuma Zwane, a man who believes that purpose precedes profit. He is the senior investigator at the CIPC's Corporate Compliance and Disclosure Regulation Unit. Mr. Zwane, welcome to Responsible Business Conversations. How are you doing?
So much, Namhla. I'm excellent. Thanks. Thanks for hosting us or having us in this pertinent discussion and dialogue. Look forward to it.
It's an absolute pleasure, and it's a pleasure to have you for this discussion. I'm definitely looking forward to it because I've been trying to figure out what is happening with South Africa and sustainability reporting and which direction we are going. So today we are venturing into sustainability reporting. However, we're unpacking this topic from a South African regulatory standpoint. The CIPC and dtic, which are both South Africa's economic, regulatory, and administrative authorities, have over the past couple of years been grappling with the intricacies of mandating or not mandating sustainability reporting. They've had the responsibility of looking beyond just the adoption of sustainability reporting, its compliance complications. However, they've also had to look at the opportunities that it represents for national priorities, as stated in the National Development Plan. Therefore, today's conversation, we ask a broader question, which is, can sustainability reporting become a catalyst for better governance, greater accountability, and a more inclusive and sustainable economy? So, Cuma Buti, before we talk about sustainability reporting in South Africa, tell us a bit about your journey. Who is the person behind the profession and the experiences that have shaped you and your current work ethos?
It's also always difficult for me to define or circumscribe my profession within a specific box, because we deal with both the legal aspect of the Companies Act as well as the accounting aspects that come from annual reporting. And so as part of enforcement, you end up wearing both hats, where you function one as I'm an investigator, yes, and then you apply I would say your quasi-legal mind or paralegal mind, and then ultimately circle back to accountancy and finance. So the background of the BCom and MBA largely informs my thinking around how numbers work, how they filter throughout the economy, and when things go wrong, how did the misrepresentation of those numbers and the words lead to the fallout of the economic phenomena, which was supposed to be purportedly reported in numbers and words. So yeah, from a professional perspective, that's who I am. I'm now caught in the thicket of these dialogues around sustainability reporting, which really is also a function of corporate enterprise value reporting with a deeper dimension of stewardship, where we obviously are now requiring those charged with governance to enhance their transparency and level of accountability and surface additional decision points externally, and make some of those, I would say, informal data sets now a bit more formal, and expose those to a broader user base of financial statements in tandem with sustainability reports. So yeah, that's basically the conundrum of my profession.
You've held a number of leadership roles throughout your career. What continues to energize you and inspire you about the work that you do today?
Yeah, Namhla, there are two issues there. One is there's a necessity that's laid upon us, so people like myself, not because I'm a civil servant necessarily, but because as a citizen of South Africa, there are issues we collectively need to own, and and I would say challenges we collectively need to confront. So on the back of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the things we grapple with on a daily basis, where we recognize that something is just not right, the dots are not connecting properly. This is not the kind of future we have imagined or dreamed of. And so we need to rise. That's what I'm saying. It's a necessity. We need to rise collectively. And each of us as individuals take our place, our rightful place in society. In my case, it's the regulatory function, corporate, etc., and shine the light on areas we may call darkness, and that way, the more we shine our lights, darkness will dissipate, and that's economic darkness. In this sense, where we've had a large pool of or communities who are still marginalized from meaningful economic participation. And those structural problems which we see on a daily basis manifest themselves in many ways. So it's incumbent upon us and those who are privy to the knowledge of the bottlenecks and the friction points, etc., to confront them. And it will either be through a pen, a keyboard, a mouse, a microphone. So collectively, eventually, we will be able to win that battle and create an environment that's conducive for shared prosperity. Yeah.
Love that. A sense of a higher purpose in terms of sort of like our different professions and knowing that we all have a greater role to play beyond just being in corporate. And how do we use those roles to shine a light in terms of ensuring greater economic freedom for all? Love that. So as a leader, what are some of your guiding philosophies?
So, I've always believed that or rather, I've been of the stance that we believe first and then we think. Our belief system shapes our logic. And from that, we gain, I guess, a deeper or higher sense of purpose. I'll give you an example. In my case, I mean, in your preamble, you said, I believe that purpose precedes profits, and rightfully so. My belief system is grounded largely on the Christian faith, the biblical doctrine, if I may put it that way. And the worldview, my worldview has been shaped largely by the Bible. Now, we know, again, let me say, I know from the holy text that one of the fundamental requirements in stewardship is faithfulness. That's found in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 4. It's required in a steward that a man be found faithful. So you bring that to the governance level and you find it enshrined in the Companies Act. The duty of care, those who occupy a fiduciary role must act in the best interests of shareholders, stakeholders, etc. So I find an interesting, I guess it was a natural organic fit in my case, where my belief system now suddenly is manifesting in the profession. You might have called it a philosophy, but in reality, it's a worldview that frames the manner in which we approach problems, whether pragmatically or just at the thought leadership level. But ultimately, it funnels down to how do I apply my knowledge and the philosophical frameworks into pragmatic solutions on a day-to-day basis within the confines of my career. And then further to that, the communities within which are in my sphere of contact. So I would ground it at that. That's where I lean or draw my strength from, my passions, my logic for pursuing certain things. And just maybe as a footnote, part of our investigative work also is really insisting on the application of stewardship against those who are charged with governance. So a breach of the act in reality is saying, fellow colleagues or ladies and gentlemen, we understand your contribution towards the economy and we appreciate you. but in reality, there are ways in which this ought to be done. The resources over which you are stewards belong to a set group of people, and there's a requirement upon you, to drive the ship in a particular direction, but within the confines of policies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in reality, we're just insisting on faithfulness, as it were, without necessarily the stick. And then only when there is pushback, we enforce administrative fines and court kicks in. So it's a cordial approach underpinned by the fact that we see each other, we see those at the forefront of the economy as stewards of the capitals that are used collectively to drive economic growth for the country, for the benefit of society at large.
That is brilliant. And I think it well prefaces sort of like our conversation today around sustainability reporting. Now moving into sustainability reporting. The DTIC and CIPC, you guys have established an adoption readiness working group. Now for listeners who may not be familiar with this group, what is its mandate and what is your role within it?
We as CIPC are the implementing agency of policy. The custodians of policy are DTIC. However, the Act allows us to make recommendations or give advice to the minister in bringing the Companies Act up to par with either global developments and best practice in the application of company law. So in that sense, the commissioner having convened I think it was a roundtable in September 2023, Pretoria. He, on the back of the launch of the standards, thought, okay, let's maybe take a first step in understanding what is going on, what the standards are about, and what they're meant to achieve. And at the time, we thought we would set up a voluntary adoption readiness working group that would just grapple with the issues at hand. Fast forward to 2025, the DTIC commissioned a regulatory impact assessment, which culminated in the production of an RIA report, which largely looked at the cost benefit of adopting the IWSP standards and a few nuances on how that would play out if we were to implement it to specific cohorts of the reporting universe. So having sat in that steering committee that was led by the DTIC, we provided a CIPC lens to the outputs, and we went on to produce a supplementary comprehensive policy rationale paper, which looked at the economic context of sustainability beyond the preparers themselves, opportunity costs around our current trade agreements, etc., and how the standards would enable capital flows to just underpin some of the logics that come from IFRS S1 and S2. And thereafter, it was deemed fit to almost formalize the consultation process. I'll say the pre-Gazette consultation process by setting up an adoption readiness working group. So that's how this ARWG structure was birthed. It's largely driven by enhanced cooperation and coordination of the federal regulators as well as the key role players in the market to just have a collective voice of technical experts and senior executive heads to grapple with the proposition for adopting the standards and how that would, like you said earlier on, either serve as a catalyst for various economic growth opportunities, how we could de-risk parts of the economy, and further the advancement of our sustainable development goals and objectives. So that's how it came about to be formed. Its function largely is to distill the core themes that will feature in the DTIC policy framework for sustainability reporting in South Africa, which I think will be published. The draft will be published on about September or October, somewhere there. So our role administratively is to coordinate the multiple moving parts, engage various sets of stakeholders, inclusive of government and the market, and then put forth recommendations that will either reinforce the propositions or the value proposition for adoption, shine light on areas which may not necessarily have been properly captured by deliberations hitherto, and also see how we can integrate our current reporting practices. This is now stuff like King 5 in the integrated reporting framework, other standards like GRI, and I guess from a global trade perspective, the ESRS reporting regime under one bouquet of a framework which is meant to strengthen our competitiveness as a country, but also attract requisite capital to grow at a fast enough rate to service the fiscus, deal with our debt, and also leave enough of a surplus in pursuit of our sustainable development objectives, among other things. So that's in essence the summary of the ARWG's mandate. There will be, however, an additional body set up by the DTIC. It will be called a Special Sustainability Reporting Advisory Committee. So for them, it's more of an interdepartmental coordination mechanism, largely for government bodies and executives in the form of either DDGs, DG, etc., to ensure policy cohesion, militate against fragmentation, and ultimately arrive at a well-woven policy that takes into account what's happening in other departments like the DFFE, SARS from a carbon tax perspective, the Climate Change Act, as I said, from the DFFE, the Prudential Authority, the banking and insurance industry, FSCA, etc., so that we don't run in different directions in pursuit of the same thing. That will obviously largely culminate in a metadata harmonization sort of project where sustainability as a domain of reporting is built into our broader economic architecture to facilitate our economic activities seamlessly.
Thank you. I think you started touching on this. South Africa has been recognized as a leader in corporate governance and integrated reporting for years. And so mandatory sustainability reporting is now seemingly the next evolution. So why is this important now? And what is government ultimately hoping will be different because of mandatory sustainability reporting? What are we shifting?
Yeah, no, beautiful question. The why now part, I think, is in two ways. I mean, companies, corporates have already proactively adopted sustainability reporting as part of their reporting suite. In some cases, we've come from an ESG sort of regime, despite the early adoption or early use or endorsement of such reporting. At a national level, some of our sustainable development initiatives have not really gained sufficient traction, caused in part by the fragmented nature of the ESG reporting regime. So we thought, okay, now that IWSB, the IFRS Foundation, took it upon themselves to converge the various frameworks and create a standard to create uniformity, not just on ESG reporting, but the sustainability reporting domain as a whole. It became an opportunity to leverage the standards, consider how best we can optimize the use of the standards in harmonizing the language on sustainability reporting, so that whenever investors compare the disclosures, they actually have the same view of things. Same thing with government. We, from a company's perspective, would need to have a firm grasp on the faithful representation of the financial reports connected to sustainability reports. Because I mean, the part of the IFRS S1 logic under its conceptual framework or conceptual foundations is that the financial statements must be published alongside the sustainability report or the other way around. So the timing is quite key for comparability. And at the same time, the usefulness of the data is underpinned by how soon it's availed and whether it can be compared within the jurisdiction and again from jurisdiction to jurisdiction globally, and hence the claim or assertion that the IWSP standards are a global baseline. But that doesn't mean necessarily that it would take into account all the needs of all stakeholders and all the needs of various stakeholders in specific jurisdictions. So that's where the South Africa Inc. component comes into play, for us to not necessarily customize, but factor in SA Inc. reporting requirements, which extend beyond the investor community and feature or lean largely or are informed largely by a double materiality lens